The first thing Emma felt was the sting of the coarse rope biting into her wrists. She had been dragged into a dark tent at the edge of the prairie. Her hair was tangled and dusty, her dress torn and streaked with mud. Standing before her was Victor Kane, a towering man with a crooked smile and cold, merciless eyes. On the table between them lay a document stamped with a forged seal. Victor slammed his hand down on it and barked, "Sign this, and all the pain will end." Emma shook her head, lips trembling but silent. At last, her voice slipped out in a whisper. "I won't." Victor stepped closer, his breath reeking of liquor and smoke. "You think you have a choice, girl?" he hissed, lifting a heated iron rod from the fire and pressing its glowing end near her skin. Emma recoiled in terror as the acrid smell of burning metal filled her nose. Her arms were bound tightly behind her, the chair creaking under her desperate struggle. Victor grinned in satisfaction. "Sign or hang." He shoved the paper against her chest and brought the searing rod to the wood beside her head, sparks scattering. The harsh prairie sun forced Emma's eyes shut. The dry wind tore at her ragged dress as Victor dragged her to a lone tree. He tossed the rope over a branch and hoisted her up, her body bound, and lifted off the ground, dangling like a broken doll in the blaze of daylight. Victor stepped back, admiring his handiwork with smug satisfaction. Emma gasped for breath, the rope tightening with every inhalation. Pain burned through her shoulders, bruises forming along her arms. Her heart pounded, her thoughts spun. Each second felt like her last. She thought of her lost family, of the life she might never live. The world blurred in sunlight and fear. Victor circled her like a vulture. "You'll sign when you can't bear it anymore." Her voice cracked into sobs. "Please, please spare me." Her body twisted helplessly in the wind, the endless prairie stretching around her. No town, no lawmen, no one to save her. Only the groaning of the rope and Victor's cruel laughter. Emma had never felt so small. Her dignity stripped away, her hope fading, her voice nearly gone. Yet still she whispered, "I'll give you everything. Just let me live." Her words vanished into the wind, but something deep inside told her the story wasn't over. Who would know the truth if no one came? Who would dare face Victor Kane and cut her down before it was too late? And if someone did appear, would they risk their life for a ruined girl? The prairie wind howled through the branches of the solitary tree. From afar, a rider slowed his horse. The man sat tall, his weathered face lined from years beneath the sun and dust. Marcus Hale had seen much cruelty in his 56 years, but the sight before him struck him silent, like a fist to the chest. A young girl strung up, forced to suffer a pain no one deserved. Not even the wild wolves deserved such an end. Rylan pulled the reins, and his old bay mare snorted, stamping her hooves against the dry grass. He slid from the saddle boots, sinking into the hard earth. He didn't rush, he moved steady, his hand already wrapped around the hilt of the bowie knife that had never left his belt. Through the haze of pain, Emma saw him. Her eyes widened. For the first time that day, a spark of hope flickered. Her lips trembled until words broke free. "I'll give you everything. Just save me." Rylan didn't answer right away. He studied the knots Victor had tied. They were tight, cruel enough to cut into flesh. Rylan set the blade against the rope. One clean slice, and the cord snapped. Emma fell, but he caught her under the arms before her feet touched the ground. She was light, too light. He could feel each bone through the thin, tattered fabric of her dress. Her shoulders were swollen, her knees scraped raw. She shook violently, clinging to him like a child. "You're safe now," he said, his voice rough but steady. Her tears soaked his shirt, yet she didn't let go. Behind them, a branch cracked. The sound sent the mare into a nervous snort. Rylan tensed. He knew that wasn't the wind. Gently, he propped Emma against the trunk of the tree and lifted his gaze. From the brush, Victor emerged, gun hanging loose in his hand. His crooked grin spread wide. "So the old man thinks he's a hero, huh?" Victor sneered. "Cutting down my prize before I had my fun." Rylan angled his stance, the knife still low at his side eyes, never leaving Victor. The air grew heavy. The rope at Emma's feet was proof enough of how close she'd come to death. Victor raised the gun at Rylan and stepped forward. "Crawl on that dirt. Maybe then I'll let you live." The prairie held its breath. Would Rylan obey or stand firm against a younger man with a loaded weapon? And what price would Emma pay for his choice? The sun burned overhead, and the vast plain shrank to hold only 3 figures. Emma clutched her torn dress, praying the man before her would not falter. But Rylan did not yield. He stood solid, knife, low eyes, unshaken. "Put the gun down, Victor," he said, "or by sundown, you'll answer to the law." Victor let out a harsh laugh, dust kicking up around his boots. "The law? You think the law cares about a runaway girl and some old fool?" He stepped closer, cocking the hammer back. Emma drew a sharp breath, heart pounding against her ribs. But Rylan's voice stayed calm. "You tied her up, forced her to sign worthless papers. That's kidnapping. That's fraud. You can fool drifters, but not a judge." Victor's grin faltered. His eyes flicked toward Emma. "You told him." She shook her head, but the truth was plain in her eyes. Victor cursed and leveled the gun higher. In that breathless moment, Rylan shifted his arm, flashing. The blade caught the sunlight as it flew, grazing Victor's hand just enough to knock the revolver loose. The gun tumbled into the grass. Victor lunged, but Rylan was faster. One hard shove sent the outlaw sprawling. In seconds, Rylan was on him, knee in his back, binding his hands with the same rope he had cut from Emma. For the first time, Emma felt the weight of freedom. She stood unsteady, clinging to Rylan's arm to keep herself upright. Victor spat curses, but the fight had drained from him. Rylan hauled him to his feet. "We'll take him to the sheriff," Rylan said. "The law will see his face and hear his lies." Emma nodded through her tears, her voice faint but clear. "Thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be alive right now. I'll give you everything. Just don't leave me." Emma's voice broke, trembling with emotion. Rylan looked at her, his gaze touched with sorrow, yet firm with resolve. In his eyes, there was more than compassion. There was respect, and perhaps the beginning of a bond that no words could quite define. The prairie wind swept past, carrying with it an unspoken promise between 2 souls who had just escaped the scythe of death. But fate was not done with them. Victor, the man who had sown terror, was not finished, and Rylan knew the final reckoning still lay ahead. By late afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Rylan tied Victor to the saddle and led him down the road toward the sheriff's office. Emma walked beside him, frail in body, but steadier in spirit than before. Her eyes lingered nervously on the bound man, fearing he might somehow slip free. Yet Rylan trusted his knots tight and unyielding. Each step forward felt like a step closer to justice. Emma's voice wavered as she asked, "Do you think the law will really listen to me?" Rylan didn't turn his head. His answer was simple, steady. You have your word, and you have me. That's enough. For the first time, Emma felt her heart stir with the belief that survival and freedom might truly be hers again. Yet as they neared an abandoned lumber yard, a strange chill crept into the air, sharpening Rylan's instincts. The stacked planks of wood offered perfect cover. The silence was too deep, too heavy. In a blink, Victor wrenched free, tumbling from the saddle. The rope slipped just enough, and steel flashed in his hand. Emma screamed. Rylan drew his knife in an instant, stepping in front of her. Two men faced off steel, catching the blood-red glow of the setting sun. "The girl belongs to me," Victor roared, eyes burning with madness. Rylan's voice was low, steady, unshaken. "She belongs only to herself." Steel clashed against steel, ringing sharp and merciless. Victor struck with fury, but Rylan held firm. At last, with a swift turn, he locked Victor's arm and wrenched the blade free, sending it clattering to the dirt. Emma, trembling, bent to snatch it up her fingers, clutching the hilt until her knuckles whitened. For a fleeting instant, her eyes blazed with fury, longing to end it once and for all. But tears spilled down her cheeks, and the knife slipped from her grasp. "I can't be like him," she whispered. Rylan bound Victor tighter than before and hauled him upright. The outlaw spat blood onto the ground, his voice thick with hate. "I'll come back. I swear it." Rylan clenched his jaw, but said nothing. The sky burned crimson, casting firelight over three figures. A man defeated a trembling girl, and an older warrior carrying within him a resolve that would not bend. For the first time, Emma felt the crushing weight of survival lift from her shoulders. She was no longer the frail figure bound to a tree, but a woman who had reclaimed her life because someone had chosen to stand for what was right. As night fell, the sheriff's men arrived. Victor screamed and thrashed, but it was useless. He was dragged away, spitting curses into the darkness until his shadow vanished from sight. Emma stood silent, her eyes following after him. Her body bore wounds, but her spirit remained unbroken. She turned to Rylan, her voice trembling, yet resolute. "There was a time I thought I couldn't escape. I told you I would give you everything. But then I realized the most precious thing I have is my life. It belongs to me. And you gave it back to me." Rylan looked at her, his eyes warm, filled with a pride words could not carry. "Hold on to that strength, Emma. It's worth more than gold. No one can ever take it from you." Together, they walked back toward the ranch, beneath a sky strewn with stars. The wind swept across the wide fields, filling the night with a sense of space and freedom. Emma's steps grew steadier, her head held higher. She knew her scars would remain, but from this night forward, she could begin again. Beside her was a man who had proven that courage did not come from youth or brute strength, but from the will to stand tall when others turned away. Perhaps that was the question for all of us. How many times have we looked away from another's pain? How many times have we stayed silent when we should have spoken? And if one day we ourselves were bound and abandoned, who would come to set us free? Emma had found her answer in Rylan. But each soul must choose for itself whether to be the one who watches or the one who cuts the rope. She tilted her head slightly, whispering to Rylan through the night wind, "This is only the beginning.